guys, welcome back to another episode of the Apex presented by RockShox. My name is John Croom, and we're sitting here with Justin Martin, otherwise known as JMART on the grams. He's a Colorado native, I would say, in my opinion. I know he's not from Colorado. I know he's from Texas, but he is another one of those trail whisperers that lives in Colorado Springs. I think there's a list of you dudes. You know, you go like down Nick Gould, Russ Finsterwald, Matheny. Like there's these guys that just know all these trails. Andy over at SRM. Like there's these guys that just know the trails, and I picture you as one of those guys. But anyways, dude, how are you doing? How are things going?
Good. Yeah. So you covered the initial bases, Justin Martin. I'm sure some of the Colorado natives a little squirmy if I try to claim myself as a native, but definitely I've definitely spent enough time exploring these trails, exploring this city to where I'm getting closer to that native status. But born and raised in Texas. Really happy to be here in the mountains. Professional cross country mountain biker. Also come from riding motocross, but yeah, anything two wheels kind of gets me going for the most part. But I spend a lot of time here in Colorado Springs, obviously training anywhere from 12 to 20 plus hour weeks. I hate driving to go ride anywhere. So my wife and I are lucky enough to have a house here in downtown. So we roll just from downtown into the Front Range here, ride many of our magnificent miles and miles of trails here. So it's rad. Still lots of trails to be explored, but in the Mecca for mountain bike riding here for sure.
Sweet. So let's talk a little bit about like how you got into mountain biking, and then how does that find you in the Springs, I guess, more or less?
Yep. Yeah. So once again, grew up racing motocross my entire life, so I started racing when I was 7. Thought that was what I was going to be as far as a professional athlete is concerned. Mom really drove home the college route. So we did the undergrad in Austin, Texas from 09 to 13.
What'd you study?
Business management. So okay. I got my business admin degree. Lots of fun. And then after I got out of college, I thought I wanted to make a bunch of money, right? I thought I wanted to put on a suit and tie and do that thing. So I found an investor and actually created an all-state insurance agency. Yeah, I did that. I started that when I was 22, I think it was. 22 to 23. Learned a lot in a 4-year span, hanging out, spend a lot of time in Chicago at training camps, with Charles Schwab executives. I'm just this kid just trying to make some money, and figure life out, and so big learning experience, but still had a racing bug, so at that point in time, I picked up a bicycle and started doing some little local races, and one thing led to another. I was full tilt into bicycle racing. I did the entire Texas cross country mountain bike scene in the Cat 2 stuff and did really well. And immediately moved up to the Texas kind of pro category or whatever. And once I started traveling across the country with my buddy Tristan Ewell, a good friend of mine, he was taking me up to Colorado, and I was getting my butt kicked by these guys that obviously live at altitude and have these amazing terrain, amazing trails to ride, And Lauren's my wife. We started chatting, and we actually got engaged. And when we were pricing for a wedding, it was like, man, dude, this wedding stuff's pretty darn expensive, And then we started kicking around like, well, maybe, do we want to relocate somewhere? So we opted to just go to the courthouse with our close family members, got hitched, and then moved up to Colorado a few weeks after that.
Sweet.
So that was December of 18.
Sweet. And so how does that find you, I guess, more or less, being like, okay, cool. So now I'm getting my butt kicked by people in Colorado. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to race. And so let's kind of dive into that. Like, how's that been for your mountain biking career, I guess, more or less?
Dude, it's been crazy because like coming from Texas, like, and Texas isn't small by any means, we have some really strong athletes from Texas, but prior to moving from Texas to here, I won the pro state title or whatever. So I was a big fish in a small pond. And then I come here and I was immediately humbled, and for one, it took me a bit to acclimate to altitude. But other than that, it's just like, we've got a lot of talent, even from like recreational riders all the way up to your elite level racers. The talent pool is just deeper here. So it gave me some good perspective, and once I knew that it was just going to be a little bit of time for me to adjust to being here and this kind of riding style or terrain, I would be moving and grooving. But it was humbling, but I knew going forward for my career, for the bicycle, for the racing stuff, this is where I kind of needed to be.
No, sweet, man. So what has your season looked like so far? I mean, it's been a crazy, just past 3 years. I think a lot of people, as we get older and as we get into our careers, with racing and whatever else, especially with COVID and the hiccup, it's really easy to do a race season and then be like, okay, cool, that sets my goals for next year. And then you do that race season, it's like, okay, cool, that sets my goals for next season. What was it like having the COVID? You know what I mean? And trying to set your season, because when your goals get derailed, it's really hard to kind of set your goals up for the next season.
Of course. And I like to say, I'm pretty type A to a certain degree, right? I like checking the boxes. I like having the plan. I like following the plan, all that kind of stuff, but only to a certain degree, right? Because at the end of the day, I ride bikes, I race bikes, because just riding in general is fun, and that's what moves my soul. To me, I have to, and I still remind myself this now. The racing is a bonus, right? The racing is a time for us to kind of showcase all the work and stuff that we've been doing. But at the end of the day, man, the bike for me is a tool to help me be the best version of myself. As I know, you spend so much time in the saddle. You go to those deep dark spots. You learn more about yourself mentally and physically. So when COVID hit, I didn't really know what to do. We rolled back the training. We rolled back, obviously, the intensity. We were just doing fun rides. And that's around the time when guys were starting to do, at least in the mountain bike world, they were doing the whole Everesting thing. They're like Nick Gould, crazy local here. He did high drive, I don't know, 100 times, to get the total elevation gain that you would do to climb Mount Everest, and that's so sick. And Kyle Trudeau, best friend of mine, did that as well. And that's rad, but that just doesn't get me going personally, So to be honest, I went and picked up a moto again. So I got back on the dirt bike, man, and I rode motocross as well as rode bicycles, which to me, the two sports complement each other so well. I get really good skills coming from moto to bicycles, really good fitness from bicycles to moto. So there's great crossover or whatever, So but no, I rode moto through the summer, and then into the fall we picked back up with the cross country stuff, and I work better with having balance, you know what I'm saying? When I drill myself into the ground and it's just put myself in this one specific little box, I struggle a little bit, so having a little bit better balance keeps me a bit fresher, both mentally and physically,
So how do you find that balance? Because I think a lot of people, especially even some of the people that we have come to this race that maybe have full-time jobs and lives and things like that, they struggle to find said balance. And so
for sure,
how do you help find some of that balance?
So for me, structure helps me find the balance, time management helps me find the balance. And the older I've gotten, the better I learned to not be so hard on myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm harder on myself than my coach. I'm harder on myself than my wife, than my mom. I'm my own worst critic, as most, top level, or most athletes are, right. And so, which is good and is bad, and just being more kind to myself, and giving myself a little leeway. I feel like we all, to a certain degree, know what we should and or shouldn't be doing, kind of a thing, and so giving yourself a little bit of space, but then also knowing that sometimes those little voices, we're just I'm tired this morning. I want to get some training in before I go to the bike shop. It's just like, look, I mean, you're going to feel way better once you get to turning the pedals, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So just walk on that line and finding that balance, but structure and just giving yourself a little space.
No, that's awesome. And so I guess with finding that balance, what's been your goals for this season? Like what's been hit and what's I guess what would you count as a failure, I guess, more or less, because I think that's another thing is like people look at goals and they're like, oh, if we don't achieve them, then boom, everything just goes awry. When in reality, like I think that sometimes when those goals aren't hit, it's not necessarily a failure as much as it is something else to kind of work on or something else to kind of adjust. So
Of course.
what's been your goals this season?
So like talking with my coach, and I work with Jason Tullis, 10X championship coaching, who's also a former CTS guy.
Yeah.
Really awesome coach. But try not to give myself like specific race goal objectives. Coming into this year, we wanted to be a consistent top 20 guy in the elite cross country field, which is a realistic goal for myself. And so starting the year off, we've done pretty well. I'd say, Cactus Cup, we were 17th, and we went to Sea Otter, had a really good showing at Sea Otter. Sea Otter was stacked, the first Lifetime event, and I was 29th on the day, which I was really, really stoked with, had amazing legs, so, but to touch back on what you were saying, like more what I learned at these races is like is how it kind of shapes my perspective, right? Because they're not all good, like it seems like for me this year it's been like a killer race, a poor race, a killer race, a poor race, and so like I've been riding these kind of waves, but I will say like the better my perspective gets, the more I'm able to take positives from the poor race result, events, you know what I'm saying? So like, instead of beating myself up for maybe not squeaking inside top 20, I think about what was good and or I just get honest with myself, and it's just like, I just didn't have the legs today or whatever it was, so but really, man, just doing the best I can every day. I mean, whatever race result is what it is, that's why I truly try to just focus on it just being that tool, and the racing is a time for me to showcase the hard work. Sometimes it's killer, sometimes it's not, and that's just the way it rolls sometimes,
No, for sure. And I think that's a classy way to look at it. And so I guess going forward, like, what do you see? What do you see for Justin Martin? Like, what do you see for JMART down the line? I mean, obviously we hope to see you at the Apex, but like, I guess what's your 2-year plan? What's your 3-year plan, or what's your next year plan? I guess more or less.
Yeah. So, I've been working on this JMART brand, so I've got an LLC now, JMART Collective, be doing DBA JMART bikes, and the goal is to continue to grow my brand. I've got some really amazing partners on board. I've got some really amazing humans behind me that have really been helping grow my program over the last 3 to 4 years, so it's a matter of finding sustainability in this industry. I know I'm not going to be, because my window of racing at this elite level is super, super small, and so I don't want to drag this on forever and ever and ever and just be, I'm a pro bike racer, right? So definitely looking at other avenues within the industry to promote longevity, so doing some coaching on the side a little bit. Man, I work with my some of my sponsors for like product marketing, advertising, photos, and so growing the content side of my brand, growing the coaching side of my brand, and I'm still working part-time at the bike shop as well too, to have a good spot in the community, in the cycling community, so man, just kind of figuring it out, like I was telling you earlier, the wife is kind of jonesing for a little JMART as well too, so man, I just turned 31, and no, I still have some good racing under my belt, that's to come, but also have some big life moves as well too, so kind of grabbing the bull by the horns and just holding on and kind of going for it,
No, that's exciting. I think that's a great and healthy way to look at it. It's kind of like not putting the results before everything, and like understanding like family life, uh, things after cycling. I mean,
Of course.
you get around this age, and it's really cool to do what we do full time, and be professionals in the sport. But we also got to figure out what to do post sport, because
Right.
we can't do it forever. And no, that's
Right.
exciting. And so I guess coming to the Apex, because the Apex is this year. We're gonna see you at the Apex.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Sweet.
I love that race. It was Micah helped me out with an entry last year, and Criterium is also going to be sponsoring the event as well too. So I'll for sure be there. I can't not be there. An event of that caliber, riding some of the most amazing trails that we have in the springs in our backyard. I ride to the race start from my house. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
man, I won't miss that for sure.
Sweet. And so what's the goals, like what was last year like, and then what's the goals for this year? We haven't released the courses yet, to my
Yeah,
knowledge, and I
yeah,
don't but I think they're trying to figure out when they're going to release it, so it might be released before this podcast, but
yeah.
we haven't yet. And so what's kind of the goals, where were you last year, and what's the
Yeah.
goals for this year?
Yeah, so this time last year, I was dealing with a broken wrist. I broke my wrist 2 weeks before national championships. And so going into Apex this past year, my wife and I had just done a week in Iceland, which was amazing, but I'd also just been coming back from a broken wrist. So fitness was a little, obviously not what it should have been going into the Apex. I knew I was going to kind of race myself into better fitness as the weekend kind of went on.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do as well as I possibly could. Once again, no expectations. And yeah, dude, we exceeded expectations. I was 15th
Oh,
by
sweet.
the end of the week, and so snagged the last spot in the purse, which was cool. Alex House definitely gave me a little gift with that one, since I think that was the one where he roached his pinky, like or one of his fingers, like the second to last stage or something like that.
Oh
But
man.
that's bike racing, right?
Yeah.
Anything can happen. But yeah, so building on last year, looking to obviously have better fitness and be able to hang on with that front group a bit longer, and be a bit more active on the front end of the race this year. Yeah, for sure.
No, for sure. I think that's epic, dude. And so I guess what's your advice to some people that are new to the Apex? And you've
Mm-hmm.
played the game of like traveling to altitude, traveling to sea
Yeah, oh yeah,
level.
oh yeah.
What's your advice to people coming up from sea level,
Yep.
getting ready for the event and doing the event?
So when I would come up to higher altitude races, like I did Leadville a couple times coming from Texas, some of the bigger epic rides races that are at altitude, I would show up. Me personally, I tried showing up maybe like 5-6 days before,
Okay.
and my bot like and that didn't work well for me, right? My body would realize it was at altitude by the time what we were racing, so I was really struggling. I like couldn't go as deep, I couldn't recover as high or as well, etc., etc. But what I found that works best for me is showing up kind of as late as I possibly could, and you
Yeah.
kind of shock your body to the altitude. You don't, in theory, you don't give your body a chance, to realize it's at altitude until, you're already a few days into the stage, or the
Yeah.
stage race rather. So unless you can get here a few weeks before, if you have some time to play with, then yeah, I mean, we have a beautiful city here. You can make a great little vacation out of it, and you get acclimated to the altitude or whatever. So yeah, if you can't get out of here, get up here at least a week before, then I would probably show up as close as you can, if you're coming from sea level, just to kind of shock your body. Maybe your body won't understand you're at altitude until about day 3, and at that point, you just kind of fake it till you make it.
Yeah. And this is a 4-day event, man. This is a 4-day
Mm-hmm.
challenge. Like it's a big
Mm-hmm.
one. What's the fueling like? What's the fueling strategy?
Eat, 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 eat.
Yeah.
Obviously the fueling during these bigger stage races is crucial, right? It's the only way that you're going to be able to, for one, survive the event, to be able to do it all over again the next day. And so not only is your pre-race fuel, your on the bike nutrition needs to be dialed, and then post-ride carbs, good protein, getting a lot of calories back in. I think on these stage races, like I eat a solid breakfast, anything like from a waffle to oatmeal, something that's easy on my stomach, a little bit of caffeine. And then after the races, obviously it's big protein shake. And then, man, I kind of just keep eating until almost bedtime, just trying to kind of overload, because you're going to be burning these carbs, you're going to be burning the energy, especially as you get into day 3, especially into day 4, you're just kind of running on fumes. So the better you are at fueling, the better you are at racing, really,
No, that's awesome, man. And yeah, thanks for that feedback. And so,
of course,
I guess going into, because we haven't really gotten a firm answer. I know that you want to be better, but what's the goal for the Apex? Top 10 or?
Yeah, dude, top 10 would be top 10 is the goal. Yeah.
That's
top
the goal.
10, I think, is realistic. I think if the legs show up, I know I've got the handling skills for it. I know these trails really, really well. And so, yeah, I think top 10 is super realistic.
Sweet. No, out of knowing these trails super well, what was your favorite stage from last year?
Oh man, dude. And it's a bummer because I don't think we're having it this year, but the Jones Loop is always a classic, a long slug up Gold Camp, and where you've got some tactics involved, some drafting involved. And then I love that long descent, that Jones Loop descent is really, really rad as well too.
That is a fun ride, man. I love that ride. And so so then I guess, to kind of wrap things up and kind of come closer to the finish, but what's one thing, like, I guess, well, actually 2 questions. If you could give one tip of like, hey man, like, make sure that you're doing this, what would it be, I guess, for the Apex? Like one thing you wish somebody told you in prep for the Apex.
One thing,
whether it was tire choice, whether it was, gear selection, whether it was suspension, tuning, like, what's one thing that you would probably recommend?
Man, I don't know. I'd say, like, if you have the ability to ride a hardtail and or a full suspension, I will say there are certain sections of the stages to where a full suspension would be a little bit better. But a hardtail is definitely a really strong weapon for this course as well too. What else?
Did you do
really,
that?
Man,
did you switch between bikes, or did you?
No, I didn't know you could switch between bikes. I to be honest, the stage racing that I've done before, it's like, what bike you start on is the bike that you finish on, kind of a thing, So
yeah.
But I think it adds a different element, if you're able to kind of ride a. Because I think Russell rode a hardtail in the prologue at Palmer, or vice versa. He rode a hardtail on the Jones stage or whatever, And so thinking about which tool you want to use is definitely something to consider. If I had a hardtail, would I ride a hardtail? Probably not, because I can take more risk on the downhills with the full suspension,
Yeah.
But to circle back to it, really, probably like the last conversation we just had, dude, fueling and eating. Like, it's hard to, these we're doing almost, mini little marathon races every day other than the prologue, and so, like, you get so tied up in the intensity, you forget to it's easy to forget to fuel, and, like, as simple as it sounds, and like Kerry Warner, beats it like a dead horse as well too. Like, like fueling is everything, and so making sure you're on a good, consistent calorie intake. What's cool about the new like my Garmin that I've got, my head unit, it's got a little notification that'll tell me to eat. So that's going to be one of the new little features that I use as far as like a reminder for these bigger stage races, So yeah, fueling and making sure your equipment is dialed for the adventure.
No, that's awesome. And I guess my last question, you coming from Colorado Springs, the cool restaurant spots and the hot spots and the places to go. So what's one restaurant or two restaurants that you would recommend for the newbies coming into town that they got to check out? I'm stuck on Kawadi because my wife is working there now, and so it's like, you guys gotta go check it out. And so but there's like 10 different restaurants inside of it. But what's one restaurant that you would recommend?
Yeah, so we actually did a nice little tour because we did like 3 days of celebration for my wife's birthday.
I know how that works, dude. It's birthday week. You
you
have to respect it.
Of course, it is birthday week. So yeah, Kawadi is really awesome, right? That's in downtown. Really cool spot. We actually went to the Well, which is relatively new as well. It's a little closer into the heart of downtown.
I haven't even heard of that. When did that open?
I think a couple weeks ago, maybe
There
a
you
month
go.
at
That's
the
how I haven't
most.
heard about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's similar style as to Kawadi. So there's like 3 or 4 different food spots in there. Really fun, really rad outdoor turf, like beautiful kind of open patio,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
views of the front range. So yeah, the Well, Kawadi. And then I mean, you're in Colorado Springs. If you got some time to explore, like cruising over to Manitou Springs is definitely worthwhile. I feel like
Oh, yeah, yeah.
also, I mean, that's a 10-minute drive, 15-minute drive from downtown, if that. And we hit Crystal Park Cantina, which I am a Mexican food snob. Obviously, coming from Texas, like we're really spoiled with really good food. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you're looking for some good Mexican food, especially after that final day where you're just looking to get a bunch of calories in, maybe a little tequila to give yourself a nice reward. Crystal Park Cantina in Manitou is really
No,
rad.
I gotta check that out because I was like, that's one thing I feel like
So
Colorado
good,
Springs lacks, and
dude.
that's
Yep.
good. That's good information for myself.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
anyways, Justin, dude, thanks so much for jumping on.
Of
Guys, if you
course.
haven't already, please make sure you check out his social media, which will be down in the description below. If you have any questions for Justin, don't hesitate. Reach out to him. Super responsive. He responded, and he got on this podcast. So make sure you shoot him a message, ask him the questions, and yeah. Until next time, guys, we'll see ya. Cheers.